Hey guys, welcome back to Andy's Dinosaur Reviews, and today we are going to check out another brand new Hammond Collection release as we have the Ankylosaurus. And you can see we've got a nice Jurassic Park 30th anniversary logo right there on the front, as well as the Hammond Collection symbol to the bottom left. The window area where we kind of have a sneak peek of our Ankylosaurus that looks like it's sleeping, as well as a really nice Rex kind of Jurassic Park logo up there. And then here on the underside, not really a whole lot going on that's interesting. Over here on the side, you can see the Ankylosaurus, as well as the fact that this version is based on Jurassic Park 3, which you don't really see for very long in that film. Then, of course, you have the Hammond Collection logo over here, and then a really cool image of the Ankylosaurus figure here on the back, as well as the species name and some information on it down there. So, definitely excited to see this one. Let's pop it out of the box and check it out. So here is our Ankylosaurus, and we might as well go ahead and take our first look at it from the better side of the figure, but you can see it looks really nice. And one thing I straight away noticed is the fact that they actually used a wash on the figure, which adds a really nice element of realism, especially running along the back, as well as on the spikes here running along the side of the dinosaur, which the wash is definitely nice to see. I would have liked to have seen actually washes used throughout the entire figure. But one thing that I can see straight away that's a downside for the figure, first of all, we do have an articulated jaw, which is an upside, but over here, it looks rough, and you really probably can't see because of the light. You can't see how rough it looks right now, but you'll see that when we get a closer look at it. It looks like it's roughly a similar size to what we normally get for a Mattel Ankylosaurus, maybe a little bit bigger. We'll have to bring one in here in a little bit and display it next to it, but it overall does look pretty fun and really exciting to have a JP3 style Ankylosaurus, so let's jump to a closer look at it right now. So starting here at the head sculpt of the Ankylosaurus, you can see that the actual detailing looks pretty nice overall. We have that kind of a light brown tone for the lower part of the Ankylosaurus, a red coloration there around the eye, and then we transition to kind of like a darker green for the upper side of the dinosaur. There is a nicely painted eye with a black, it's just a pure black, and does sport a gloss coat, so it shines fairly realistically. We have the darker coloration that kind of runs over the top here, overtaking this spike here, but the lighter tone overtakes that spike. And you can see a similar coloration to this spike running along here. I almost think this one looks out of place, almost looks like it's kind of unpainted, if it weren't for the fact that these ones have the same color as this. So it doesn't look terrible. You can also see that we have that same similar style of like a dark green for the beak, but the beak does have a nice gloss coat to it, so it shines pretty nicely, which is a plus. The nostrils are also sculpted out right there. The articulated jaw, even though it's kind of ugly, does work pretty nicely. You can see that the tongue looks nice on the inside of the mouth. Everything's painted with a pinkish tone in there. Can't really see much for the upper side. It doesn't look bad as far as the articulated joint on this side, but once we come over here, you can now see what I was talking about. That looks really, really rough, and even worse when it gets closed, because now it just is like a huge area of separation, and I can push it back, but it doesn't stay. It kind of comes back out. Maybe I'll try to kind of use a hairdryer or something to reposition that a little better so it sits in there nicer, but from this point, like, you can see the entire lower jaw is kind of a little crooked, so once I get it fixed, it might look a little bit better, or I'll just have to buy another at some point to replace this one. But up here on the top of the head, you can see again that heavily armored look for our Ankylosaurus, and you can see what I was talking about is there's a nice kind of a light wash that's been applied to the upper side that really highlights all of those kind of armored scoots and scales and everything moving along the top of the dinosaur, but also just gives it that kind of dirty, kind of gritty appearance you would like to see on an Ankylosaurus. And you can see again what the skin texture looks like here in the neck, because you can reposition the neck. As you continue to move along the back of the Ankylosaurus, it looks as though we have that wash through pretty much the entire back of the figure, which I definitely love. I think it was a great choice on the part of Mattel to include that. That wash has actually been applied, or maybe actually a separate dark wash, because it actually looks like a different tone. But as you move down here to the side with these spikes, you can see the spikes do include a dark wash. It's a different kind of a dark wash, because we have like a light brown dark wash for the back. This is more of like a blackish sort of a wash, or a brownish wash, which highlights all of the detail very nicely. And the detail does look really, really nice in those areas. One downside, though, is you can see a seam here where they connect to the side of the figure that's really obvious, like very, very obvious. It doesn't look terrible, but it doesn't look great either. But as you move through, again, the top has an extremely nice, very highly detailed, very crisp, detailed appearance to it. Everything looks great. All of these larger bumps and everything moving along the back of our Ankylosaurus are all individually painted here as you move through. I think they were probably just one solid color and then slid together. But as you move down here and you get into the tail, you can see they are no longer painted. However, we do continue to have that brownish wash, which, really helps the entire figure as far as the realism goes. And then as we lead out into the club tail, you can see that we transition to a light tone for the club tail. The club tail, unfortunately, doesn't seem to have a wash, though, which would have been nice to have on that. Would have been a nice addition, but it does still look really cool. And, of course, the club stands out very nicely, and the detailing also looks really, really good. But as you move down here to the underside, you can again see how it transitions to this kind of like light brown moving through. This area, I really feel like, even though it contains a nice speckling, you can see a speckling throughout, which does help to kind of give it some variation of color. It really would have been nice to have that dark wash down here, or some sort of, like the same similar dark wash we see on those spikes down here would have really been cool to see. But as you move through, you can see, again, everything pretty much contains that same style of coloration, but it is absolutely overloaded with speckles. You can see they are everywhere on the underside of this, and there's some really nice looking sculpt and detail for the underside as well. And then as you look up here, you again have some nice skin texture here for the stomach region, maybe slightly muted compared to what we're used to, but still not terrible. Really nice looking, though, in the legs. The legs are extremely crisp, really vibrant as far as the detail goes. You can see the elbow, really nice looking skin texture, scale detail moving down, lots of articulated joints. Unfortunately, though, we don't have painted nails, and that's kind of shocking. I expected painted nails, unless their intentions were to make the nails the same color or a similar color to what the feet are. It really would have been nice to have some painted nails. We do have a gloss coat for the nails, shockingly, but no actual specific nail paint, which, in my opinion, is definitely a downside. But you can see, again, that is some incredible looking skin texture moving up the course of the rear leg. Like, it looks just gorgeous overall. Really nice muscle definition and everything displayed throughout. You've got the kneecap and everything. And you're going to see the same thing over here as far as pretty much everything that was mentioned. The really beautiful detail, the seam running along. It's actually really visible here in the neck as well, where the spikes connect and everything. It doesn't look bad. It just could have looked better, that's for sure. We actually have an alternate tone, kind of a darker brown here, running along for those spikes back there on the back of the tail. But again, honestly, the only real big downside for me is the way that my jaw appears and the fact that we don't have nail paint. Outside of that, I still think it's a pretty cool kind of a rendition of a Jurassic Park 3 Ankylosaurus, and I'm definitely excited to have an Ankylosaurus now in the Hammond Collection line. As far as articulation goes, we do have a spot right here in the back of the head, so you can swivel it and move it up and down a little bit, but as you try to move it, it kind of operates the rear joint here of the neck as well. So they kind of move together mostly, but you can see you can get some really nice positions and stuff out of it. You can turn the head nicely left or right. Look at that. That's really, really nice. I really hate the fact that its lower jaw is so messed up, but you do, of course, have an articulated jaw as well. I guess if we keep it open, it looks a little bit better, but still not great. But the head and neck articulation is really, really nice. As you move back into the legs, you have the shoulder as well as the elbow and the wrist, so you can really get some nice posing and nice display options for the legs of the Ankylosaurus. Same deal with the hip as well as the knee and the ankle. The ankle actually doesn't move very much. Forward and back, I expected a little more. Oh, you know what? I think it's just stiff, because I can see there definitely is a joint there to move the ankle that way, but it's just not really moving right now. And then as you move out, rather than your trademark wire tail you normally have for a Hammond Collection release, you can see we've got a joint here, 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 and here, so that you can move the tail in a really smooth way. And those joints actually look pretty good. Like, they blend together nicely. They're not super visible. They're not really obvious. They're a little more obvious when you look at it from the underside, but from the upper side, they don't look bad at all. You can see they actually kind of blend in, and you can get a nice upward positioning for the tail, downward position, and then of course left and right. So there is definitely some nice mobility in the tail as well. So for an Ankylosaurus, it really has some beautiful articulation. As far as the size goes, and it definitely is quite large. Lengthwise, I would say about 12 inches or just shy of 12 inches, maybe a little over, approaching about 30.5 centimeters. And then for a height to the top of the back, which would be the highest point, a little over 3.5 inches or 9 centimeters, maybe approaching 9.5. For a size comparison, there is Mr. Papo T-Rex, the Attack Pack Ankylosaurus, and Robert Muldoon from the Mattel Jurassic World toy line next to our Ankylosaurus, showing you that it absolutely has a very large, very impressive size to it. Really quite impressive, honestly. Like, looking at it, it's certainly a little bit bigger than I was expecting it to be. And to show you that for another comparison, here is the adult version of Bumpy the Ankylosaurus, the Roar Strikers or Roar Attack, whatever version this one was. But you can definitely see now that the Hammond Collection version is quite a bit larger than the Mattel original, like, the standard version of an Ankylosaurus. So I think this is a pretty good, pretty important comparison to really take notice of the fact that this one's quite a bit larger. For another comparison, here is the Jurassic Park 3 Velociraptor next to the Jurassic Park 3 Ankylosaurus. Again, to show you the size of the Ankylosaurus with one of its neighbors. We've also got the Pachycephalosaurus next to the Ankylosaurus, again showing you what the smaller size figures are in comparison. But when it comes to a little bit of a larger Hammond figure, there is the Ceratosaurus next to the Ankylosaurus. So you can see now that we are increasing in size of the figures. They're, a little bit closer in size overall. So once you go to the mid-size, that mid-range figure, you can definitely see again that they are very similarly sized. But one comparison I really want to see is the Hammond Collection T-Rex next to the Ankylosaurus, and you can definitely see a massive size difference here. So obviously the T-Rex will continue to reign as the supreme largest Hammond Collection release that there is, until maybe we get a Spinosaurus or Giga or something, but you can definitely get, again, an idea of the size of the Ankylosaurus, hopefully, here next to this T-Rex. So this brand new Mattel Jurassic Park 3 Hammond Collection Ankylosaurus is pretty fun. It's not the greatest figure ever, but it actually is a lot nicer than I was expecting it to be, especially with the application of that brownish wash. I really love that. But the paintwork of this is decent. Again, it's not bad. Probably one of the better attempts from Mattel at a Hammond Collection paint job, because we have a wash applied and stuff. So they tried to add a little bit of realism to it, which I can definitely appreciate. I still think a dark wash through the lower part of the body would have looked great, especially when it comes to all the cracks and crevices of the skin texture in the legs. As a whole, the sculpt is extremely nicely done. I don't know how exactly accurate the Ankylosaurus sculpt is to what you see on a Jurassic Park 3 Ankylosaurus, because I've never really paid too much attention to them, and we also don't see them for very long in the film. But I think it looks decent for what it is. I just can't tell if this is more based off of a Jurassic World Ankylosaurus or a Jurassic Park 3 one. But the paint job is obviously very Jurassic Park 3. The best part about the figure, though, is the fact that we have lots of articulation, and it all works very nicely outside of the jaw. Everything seems to work really well. It's very smooth and allows for a lot of really cool posability for the figure, as you usually find for a Hammond Collection release, but it's just neat to see the way that they created the articulation for the Ankylosaurus, now having joints in the tail and stuff rather than a bendable wire tail. The only downside for me is the fact that the articulated jaw is so wonky and definitely needs to be fixed, and the lack of nail paint is a downside overall. But still, it is actually a really cool release, and one that I'm very happy to now have in my collection. So I will include a link in the description to where I purchased this on Big Bad Toy Store. I don't know if it's in stock, because that stuff's been kind of selling like hotcakes over the last few days. But you can definitely check the link in the description, go see if it is in stock. If it's not currently, check back later. It'll probably show back up in stock at some point soon. Grab it when you do see it there, and make sure you like, comment, and subscribe, and I will see you in the next review. Thanks for watching.